Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever you're watching this. I hope you're doing all right. We're still locked down. We're still working from home. So, of course, we're still live streaming. Pardon me. I hope that the video quality is a little bit better today than it has been recently. I'm trying out a new camera. I'm kind of liking it. It's not too bad. I think the brightness quality is definitely way better than with my old camera. I think that old camera might have just been getting old and worn out. So with this new setup, definitely please let me know if you can hear everything all right, if you guys like the video a little bit better. It doesn't have autofocus on it though, so if I lean like too close, then I might be a little bit out of focus. So yeah, guys, let me know, just making sure that everything's set up all right. And without any further ado, I want to crack open some of these things. Woo. I just picked up a bunch of these varieties of Keebler Elf cookies because they were on sale at the store, so I figured why the heck not. And I've done a lot of like the shortbread and a couple of different varieties of the sandwich cookies, stuff like that with Keebler Elf, but I haven't done a lot of these kinds of kitsch varieties. So what are these? Deluxe Grams. It's been a long time since I had these. Grasshoppers, aka Girl Scout Cookie Thin Mint knockoffs. Peanut Butter Dreams. I don't know if these are new or if they're just something that I haven't seen in the stores too often. My goodness. So I'm looking forward to trying some of these. In fact, I'm going to have this one right here. And Coconut Dreams. Another clear ripoff of Girl Scout cookies. But you know, I think that's alright, because these things are pretty dang good. I don't know if they're quite as good as Girl Scout cookies, but they definitely do get the job done. Caramel. That toasted coconut flavor. I think the shredded coconut is a little bit of an unfortunate texture, shall we say. Not the best, but... Got some folks saying that the sound is low. Let me see if I can do anything about that. Let's see if I turn up the gain. Is this getting better? Can you guys hear me a little bit better now? Is the sound a little bit better? I'm going to have to wait for the chat to catch up with that to see if I'm actually turning this gain knob the correct way. Cool. Okay, looks like I'm getting an affirmative from some folks. MJC say the sound is okay. Cool. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. The gain knob was turned all the way down. Like, I don't adjust the settings on this microphone too often, so yeah, who knows what was going on there. Let's welcome some folks to the chat. Got Eric Winokur saying, hi Steve, sounds a little bit low. Yeah, thanks man. MJC, thanks for joining the chat. Zeppyish with his usual a chorus of wanting to see Edward's pies. Yeah, no Edward's pies today, but I got some cookies, so I'm going to enjoy the sugar. Now, like I said, the new camera that I'm using is a manual focus. It doesn't have autofocus. So it looks like maybe if I sit, looks like maybe if I sit right about here, that's probably where the focal point is. I don't know. It seems to do better when I'm like sitting in the center of the screen. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe sitting off to the side isn't the best thing to do right now. Who else is in the chat? Eric Gunnarsson, thank you for joining us today. AJ, Thanks for joining today. Glad to see all you guys in the chat. Glad to see everybody tuning in for the live stream. Awesome to see the regulars. I'm so glad that we have survived yet another week of this incredible, this historic pandemic that is sweeping the world. All this terrible stuff going on. Oh my goodness. Oh man. Holy moly. These peanut butter dreams. Yeah, if you guys have not tried these, whoa. That is extremely good. Nice soft cookie with that combination, that classic combination of chocolate and peanut butter. This is the perfect texture. I love this thing. Ah, it's so good. Unfortunately, I don't have any milk with me today. So I've got cookies and water, which I guess I'll have to make do with it. I do have to say, one of my favorites of the Keebler cookies are just these very simple, like graham cracker chocolate cookies. I mean, they're so simple, but they're really delicious. All right, I've already spent a couple of minutes like prattling on about nothing. So yesterday when I was going out for a jog, I was listening to a podcast about stress and all the different like stress hormones in your body and how it interacts with, you know, cortisol, serotonin. Did they mention melatonin? I don't think they mentioned melatonin. I think it was mostly cortisol and serotonin, the balance of those two things. Which serotonin is definitely not a stress hormone, but it is a hormone that is affected by stress, so it's good to know. And it got me thinking about like some of the times in my life when I was way overstressed, and how the different stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline can affect you either in an acute way or in a chronic way. So I thought it'd be cool to like see if I could dig up some sources, look up some information about it, and talk a little bit about it. Because I think it is something, like, a lot of people are really, like, I feel like a lot of people are pretty aware of nutrition nowadays, even if they don't have super in-depth knowledge of nutrition. You know, they're aware that it's good to eat the right foods, it's good to eat healthy foods. Man, this shirt does not look good with this thing around my neck, so I'm going to get rid of that. Yeah, it's most people have this like loose grasp of good nutrition, that it's a good idea to eat healthy foods and stuff like that. But like they do have a good idea of not being too fat is a good thing, not being, you know, not eating foods that are empty calories, making sure that you're getting the right nutrients, things along those lines. But one thing a lot of people, I feel, don't have a super good grasp on and isn't really in the mainstream consciousness is the idea of having a good hormone balance. And aside from just a couple of really big hormones, I think it's something that, yeah, just a lot of people don't really know about. And it is something that's affected me quite a bit in the past. So I thought it'd be cool to, see if I could find some good resources on cortisol in particular. And lo and behold, the best... pardon me, the best resource for understanding cortisol was Wikipedia. So that's like, this is the most the most digestible and the most easily understood like forum that I could find for learning more about this stuff. So yeah, if you guys want to learn about cortisol and stress hormones, like This tiny little Wikipedia page, which is, you know, 1/3 of it are references, seemed like it was a pretty good explanation. And it jived pretty well with my understanding of cortisol anyway. And I think that a lot of people conflate cortisol and adrenaline, and I think cortisol is probably the more important hormone than adrenaline. You know, when most people think about stress and they hear the word stress, they immediately go to like, oh, this is something that's really bad. It's something that should be avoided at all costs. So it's definitely good to have a good understanding of it and realize that just like anything else, there's a reason that it's in your body. So having too much of it is obviously bad, but also not having enough of it can also be really, really bad. So before I dive into this, I want to see who else is in the chat. Bricks Aiden, new guy. Not seen you around before, so thank you for joining the live stream. Glad to have you here. You're asking, what is that trophy from? And Beyond Saddle Eats. Thank you for piping up there. Thank you for joining the live stream today. That's Nathan's trophy. Yeah, I got that trophy in. Let me get rid of this video so people can see it. That guy right there. I got that trophy last year at the first Nathan's. Not the first Nathan's contest I've done, the first Major League Eating contest I'd ever done, which was a Nathan's Coney Island hot dog eating contest qualifier in Salt Lake City. So I was super glad to compete right alongside Beyond Seattle Eats. So I had a lot of fun there. Ooh, pardon me. Let's see, what else is going on? AJ, you say fry yay. Yeah, obviously. We're almost in the weekend, man. Just a half a day left. I don't know how important that is to a lot of people nowadays. So it's a funny thing about weekends. They don't mean quite so much when you're unemployed, but thankfully I am employed. I feel like I'm overemployed right now, actually. Work has just been slamming me so hard this week. So it's been stressing me out. So it's quite apt that I'm talking about stress hormones today. Who else do we have here? Tuna Shogun, thank you for dropping in the chat. How's it going, man? Yeah, cool. Glad to see everybody is here and listening and having a great time. I know that I'm having a great time. I'm going to have another one. I've been holding this darn cookie for way too long. Okay, so this monitor is way far away from me, so I want to blow up this text so I can actually read it. Let me see here. Cortisol is a steroid hormone in the glucocorticoid class of hormones. When it is used in medication, it is known as hydrocortisone. So it is no coincidence that cortisol and cortisone sound very similar, because cortisol has a lot of the same has a lot of the same effects on the body as cortisone. Cortisone is an injection that you can get to reduce inflammation. It's kind of like forcing your body to reduce inflammation. So if you do have an acute injury and you need to ignore it and just like power through it, a lot of athletes do get a cortisone shot. Let's see, this is a kind of long-winded explanation, but let's see here. It is produced in the adrenal cortex and the adrenal gland. It is produced in other tissues in lower amounts. It is released in the diurnal cycle, blah, 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 in response to stress and low blood glucose concentration. It functions to increase blood sugar through gluconeogenesis. That's one of those words that comes up every now and then that I talk about quite a bit. Let's see, to suppress the immune system and to aid in the metabolism of fat, protein, and carbohydrates. It also decreases bone formation. Now, one of the things it does not mention here, like I said, cortisol also does lower inflammation. So it is one of those things that's like, if you're in an acute stress situation, your body like gives you that like, boom, that shot of cortisol, that shot of adrenaline. It's basically like your body like ramping up metabolism to give you as much energy as it can in the immediate like in the present right now to get stuff done and to shut down all other processes like your immune system, what else, digestion, just about everything. So cortisol is definitely a good thing to have when the stuff hits the fan. And if you do look into it a little bit more, there are some obvious like benefits of it that are good. There are some obvious things that are bad that you definitely don't want to have going on. The primary one is this gluconeogenesis. It does increase blood sugar, and one of the ways that it does that is that gluconeogenesis. But for folks that haven't heard of that before, gluconeogenesis is the process of turning amino acids into glucose or sugar for your body to burn. Because your body can't derive energy directly from protein or amino acids, it needs to turn it into glucose first before it can actually utilize it. And the storage form that your body has for glucose is glycogen. If it's using that, fine. The storage form of fat is your adipose tissue. If it's using that, great. Everybody loves to burn more fat. But the storage form of protein in your body is your muscles. So if your body's engaging gluconeogenesis, it's most likely going to grab that energy from your muscles, and that'll cause some muscle catabolism. So that's something that's okay in small amounts, but definitely not something that you want to have happen too much or too often. Let's see here. So this is known as gluconeogenesis, but I've mentioned before that can also happen with dietary protein. So if that's something like if you're taking branched chain amino acids, then it's going to probably cause a little bit less muscle breakdown. Let's see. The net effect is to increase the concentration of glucose in the blood, further complemented by a decrease in the sensitivity of peripheral tissue to insulin, thus preventing the tissue from taking the glucose from the blood. Now, folks who are familiar with insulin, familiar with diabetes, probably, that'll raise a couple of red flags. Where insulin sensitivity is good, insulin resistance or reduction in sensitivity is actually what leads to type 2 diabetes, or it's kind of like a precursor to type 2 diabetes. So if you have too much resistance to insulin, then eventually that can be diagnosed as type 2 diabetes. So that's something that obviously you don't want to have happen. So like if anybody ever thought that being stressed was all in your head and doesn't affect your body, no, like this is a great example of how stress can directly affect your health and how it can cause ailments like insulin resistance and glycogen or glucose dysregulation. Let's see here. Cortisol also plays an important but indirect role in liver and muscle glycogenolysis? Huh. Now that's one thing I did not know. So it both creates, so glycogenolysis is the formation of glycogen, which is the storage of taking blood sugar and storing it in glycogen. So I did not realize that. So I guess instead of like just increasing your energy availability through gluconeogenesis, sounds like it kind of upregulates all the pathways of glucose and carbohydrate. Pardon me. Yeah, I mean, down here it even says, paradoxically, cortisol promotes not only gluconeogenesis, let me see if I can read that, gluconeogenesis in the liver, but also glycogenesis. What is glycogenolysis? Because I was thinking of glycogenesis. Glycogenolysis is the breakdown of glycogen. Okay, so glycogenolysis is, of course, getting energy from glycogen. And then is that right? Glycogenolysis, yes. Glycogenolysis is getting energy from glycogen. Glycogenesis is creating glycogen. I think I need more sugar, because this is already hurting my brain. So all that stuff is pretty interesting, but I feel like a lot of people don't really care too much about glucose burning and how your body burns energy from sugar. What most people are more interested in hearing about is of course, the metabolism of fats and lipids, which lipids, another fancy word for fat. Did I say fats and lipids? I meant proteins and lipids. So lipids, another word for fat. Let's see here. Elevated levels of cortisol, if prolonged, can lead to proteolysis, breakdown of proteins, like I mentioned before, and muscle wasting. Ooh, that's a bad one. Let's see here. The effects of cortisol on lipid metabolism are more complicated since lipogenesis is observed in patients with chronic raised circulating glucocorticoids, i.e. cortisol levels, although an increase in circulating cortisol promotes lipolysis. So what does that mean? Basically, if you have an acute situation where you have increased cortisol, then your body is actually engaging in more burning of fat to give you more energy. But if you have chronic increased cortisol, and that's like chronic stress, then that causes an increase in lipogenesis, which, as you might surmise from the name, that just means that your body's taking energy and storing it as fat. So it's kind of like this little paradox where, if you get a little bit of, a small amount of cortisol in small doses infrequently, then you're burning more fat, and that's good. But if you do have increased levels of cortisol for extended period of times, chronic stress, then of course you're going to be storing that fat, and that is bad. Let's see. I think the last one that I wanted to look at was bone and collagen. That's the other one that's really big in my opinion. Where cortisol reduces bone formation, favoring long-term development of osteoporosis. That is a weird way to say that. Favoring long-term development. I don't know why they would use that wording there. I think that needs to be replaced with, causing long-term development of osteoporosis, or can lead to the development of osteoporosis. The mechanism behind this is twofold. Cortisol stimulates production of blah, 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 blah. A bunch of big words and acronyms that I don't really know. Let's see here. I think the key takeaway here is that it transports potassium out of cells in exchange for an equal amount of sodium ions. See above. This can trigger the hyperkalemia of metabolic shock from surgery. Calcium also reduces, or cortisol also reduces calcium absorption in the intestines. Cortisol downregulates the synthesis of collagen. Like, that's the really big important thing there, is that cortisol, again, it can reduce the density of your bones. Like, it just gives you frail little bird bones. They're kind of pitiful. So And if you look into this stuff, I'm not going to go through this entire article, but if you look into this, tons of interesting stuff about the way that norepinephrine, cortisol, adrenaline, and everything affects your hormone balance. But like I mentioned, cortisol in small amounts, good thing. In large amounts, it's a bad thing. There's a condition that is called hypercortisolism. I think that a lot of people, for a while, there was this term going around the internet and health and fitness circles called adrenal fatigue. And I feel like it might have just been hypercortisolism disguised as something else, rebranded basically because people weren't familiar enough with cortisol to understand what they were seeing. And I definitely had some hypercortisolism going on back in 2013 when I was training for extended periods of time. Because one of the things that can cause the release of cortisol is either high intensity exercise, VO2 max exercise, or extended periods of aerobic exercise, and that can cause chronic cortisol release if you continually do it and don't let your body cool down. And one of the ways that you can combat that is if you do have a release of cortisol, then the way that you would combat that is to just eat something. And there are studies that show that just eating something after exercise reduces your cortisol level, as long as you stay in this energy balance. So I think that it's not super surprising what's going on there. It's, your body's starving. So it kind of goes into freak out mode and does what it can to maintain its energy levels, especially if you're engaging in high intensity exercise and you're forcing your body into this fight or flight response. So yeah, I definitely had hypercortisolism. I had lost, over the course of a year, I had lost I think 9 pounds. I'd gone from 142 to 133 pounds. So I was already super light, about 10 pounds lighter than I am right now, down to 133 pounds. And my body fat percentage had gone from about 4 or 5% up to 11 or 12%. So if you do the math on that, even though I had lost 9 pounds, I had actually gained fat. I had gained several pounds of fat and lost about 17 pounds of lean body mass. And as a result, I got a bone scan, I think later in that year. And I had the bone density of somebody who was like 70 years old. Like I was incredibly frail. It was really bad. And one of the acute responses of your body of having, constantly elevated levels of cortisol is that it won't let you go to sleep. Like I woke up every 90 minutes, like clockwork, every single night for months and months, because your body goes in these like light sleep, deep sleep cycles, and every time my body would go, and one of those cycles is about 90 minutes, so that's why I would wake up every 90 minutes, because every time my sleep cycle would go to that light phase, I'd have this elevated cortisol, elevated blood sugar, and I would just like snap awake, just pop, just be like, okay, I'm ready to go, except that I only got 90 minutes of sleep, and then 10 minutes later, I'd have to like lay in bed, and 10 minutes later I'd go back to sleep, only to wake up 90 minutes later. So it was really not very good. Oh my goodness. So I think the moral of the story is that like cortisol, adrenaline, stress, definitely good for you in small amounts, as long as you get adequate recovery in between the times when you do stress yourself out. But if you are in this like constantly elevated state, this constant state of elevated stress, then yeah, it's pretty bad news. Like I said, I was dealing with osteoporosis almost. I had gotten this skinny fat look where I was kind of chubby, but I was also just extremely skinny. My arms were just like, my arms were like PVC pipes. Like they were just straight circles, just straight tubes. I had pretty big legs because I was running a lot and biking a lot, and that was what was causing me to be in a constant energy deficit. But the reason I was that way that year was because I was training for long distance triathlon, just chronically underfed, chronically doing repetitive cardio workouts, that kind of thing. So not something I would ever suggest anybody do to that extent, unless you're a professional athlete and you have the luxury of like working out and then sleeping for the rest of the day. Like if you can sleep 12 hours a night, yeah, no problem. Then you're able to give your body the chance to like recover from the chronic stress. For most people, though, it's definitely a balance. And definitely the reason why I will never do a long-distance triathlon again. Asterisk on that, though. I don't feel the need to do a long-distance triathlon again, but who knows? In 10 years from now, maybe I'll retire and I'll be a millionaire and I'll just hang out and sleep and work out and everything will be dandy. But probably not. Okay. All right, guys, that was my rant for the day. I didn't eat nearly as many of these cookies as I was hoping to. So thank you, everyone, for who showed up today. Thank you to everyone who showed up over the course of the entire week. If you showed up on Wednesday, I am definitely looking forward to that, the second chance of the rocket launch going on tomorrow. I don't know what time it is, but anybody who's interested could definitely, pardon me, could definitely look it up, see what's going on. Hopefully it all works out for Elon Musk, because that's some pretty exciting stuff. So like I said, thank you guys. I hope you found this informative. Maybe you just found it entertaining. Maybe you just wanted to like have this playing in the background and have some weird guy rant about some random topic. So, oh my goodness. Let's see. One last glance at the comments. Oh, Manic Tricks Woods asking me what my favorite moment in my childhood is. I don't know, man. My childhood was a long time ago. I can't remember what was going on then. Yeah, that's something I'd have to noodle on for a while. Tuna Shogun says, I'm doing good. Thank you for asking, MJC. Katie, glad to see you could join. Can't wait to see you in your stream later. Oh, yeah. I did notice Katie, Beyond Seattle Eats, posted on Twitter that she was going to be doing an insane spicy challenge 16 million Scoville units, something like that. Just pure capsaicin challenge. So if you want to see some absolutely insane stuff, go check out her channel. I don't know why you would do that, but all the power to you. Have fun. I hope you guys survive that. MJC, have a good weekend, Steve, and everyone. Yeah, you too, man. And with that, I think I'm going to sign off. I'm going to enjoy some of these cookies. I didn't even mention that I was eating these what are these called? Grasshoppers? Thin Mint knockoffs? Who knows? It's like an after dinner mint, except even grosser. Grasshopper is not my favorite. Well, those peanut butter dreams, those are pretty dang good. So yeah, like I said, thank you everybody for showing up. It's been a great week. I hope you guys have an awesome weekend. I've got a super busy weekend. Wish me luck. This is the last weekend before my class is over, so I gotta wrap up a research paper. I gotta wrap up a project. I gotta wrap up a write-up. I gotta wrap up so much stuff. I'm gonna be super busy through the entire weekend, so wish me luck, guys. And until next time, peace out. I'll see you guys next Monday.